Welcome to the first of the entire new series of the 2009 CRF 250R bike rebuild. So I purchased this bike on August 11th of 2020 as a full-sized bike to upgrade from my 150, which was definitely getting way too small for me. So I bought this bike for $2,400, which was about $600 below what the cheapest other bikes were listed for. And that brought some issues with it, and here are some of them. So one of the biggest issues of this is the wheels are not great at all. So one of these spokes here is bent pretty out of shape, which is right here. You want to come get a good picture of that. Right there, you can see it's bent pretty good. And the front wheel also has some issues. Another one of the things is the chain is really loose around this sprocket, so we're going to have to get a new chain and sprocket set. But here's one of the most important things that needs to be fixed. Up here, if we look at the bearing on the shock up at the top, you will see it move. And that is not a good thing. So we need to replace the upper bearing for sure and the lower bearing as a precautionary. And then we're going to pack the linkage bearings with grease. I've already rebuilt the entire innards of the fork, including bushings, seals, and everything that's good in there except for springs and the valves. So we're going to replace those with Racetech valves, Racetech springs, and everything Racetech inside of here to make it perfect, along with the shock on the back. So one of the issues, I believe it's with the left side, is the inner fork tube is actually bent in and pinching that spring at the bottom because Honda had made the rotor bolts longer than the fork guard bolts. So somebody prior had put the wrong bolt in there and pinched the lower fork tube. So we're going to have to take off the boot of the fork and bring that back to brand new condition. We will also be redoing the entire graphics with custom graphics that I've already designed and will be ordering this month. We'll also be doing new bars and levers and grips, especially the grips. They are really worn out. So this is going to be a big project and it'll take about 5 months, so I hope you guys stick around for the rest of the entirety of this bike build. It'll be slow, but it's coming. So the first step that we got to do here is wash it. So we're going to take off the plastics and we're going to start washing it. Okay, so one of the things that's real important when we're going to be doing this here is we don't want to get any dirt inside of the fuel lines. So I'm going to take some of this saran wrap and I'm going to take a couple of zip ties, which I think are in my toolbox somewhere, and we're actually going to put it around these tubes to make sure that nothing gets in there. Okay, we got the bike out here, we got all the plastics laid out, we got the pressure washer off the frame, and let's get to washing. Okay, so we got all the bike cleaned up. Everything went really smoothly. Next up, we are going to take off exhaust, the subframe, and we're going to crack into the head. And that also means that we're going to be draining oil and coolant. So let's get straight into that right now. Okay, so we're going to be starting by taking the exhaust off, and we're going to start up here. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take off these exhaust springs. Now I don't have an exhaust spring puller, so I'm going to use a pair of these with a little bent needle nose pliers. I've used them before, and they seem to work pretty well. So we'll see if I can get them to work again. And right now they're just mocking me. There we go. That's one off. Two off. That wasn't too bad. Now we got two bolts right there, and I believe they are 12 millimeter. Let's see if that is a proper guess, and it was. Now you want to make sure that you're loosening these bolts at around the same time, and that way this mount right here doesn't get all crossed on your header here and make a mess to get off, which is a pain. So there's one bolt. Speaking of bolts, we need to get plastic bolts into a Ziploc bag. 2 bolt. And now we are just going to take this off of here. Okay, and now we are going to move on to the rear half of the exhaust. Okay, so now we're at the back half. This is the bolt that takes off this portion of the exhaust, and then we have one more bolt up here that mounts it to the rest of the subframe. So we're going to start, let's start with this one. It's a tight one. And we're going to loosen this one also. I believe this bolt actually has a pretty good sized bend in it. Yeah, see that? How it's wobbling back and forth. You'll see the bolt once it comes out here. Slight bend. Okay, so that probably should be replaced. We'll see how that goes though. Now we got the back side of the muffler that just rolled all the way around the entirety of the bike and has now been handed to me by Guido, the rear side of that bolt there from up here. So we're going to separate these. Don't worry, folks, that's just fine. That was the exhaust gasket squish thingy that went flying off. So here's the old one, nice and garbage, with the old header right here. We're going to want to take this off of here because we need this for the future, and hopefully we won't have to put this back on. And here's the thing that fell. Now we're going to move back up to the front and we're going to get that exhaust gasket out of the hole. Okay, so this is our little gasket here, and we got to take this thing out, and so we're going to try our best at doing so. And it looks like we're going to have to get more of a prying mechanism going on here, and I think we could use some Phillips or just some precision screwdriver sets here. We'll see if maybe we can pry this out, but I don't think that we're going to get anywhere anytime soon at the moment, which we are not. Okay, so there's one, and it appears, this is weird, there's actually a second gasket in here. Just got to get up in here, and there it is, folks. 2 gaskets. That's interesting. Okay, so that's the entire exhaust system removal. Now we're going to move on to subframe. Okay, so the next thing to do is take off this big subframe. And I believe, by the looks of it, you should still be working with this 12 millimeter T-handle. So we are going to start at the top here with this bolt right here. Don't want to put a lot of force on this bolt as I'm taking it out, so this might be easier. There we go. Looks straight, looks good to go. So now the subframe should be able to hinge freely as soon as we get the air box taken off the carb. So we need to get to that. And the first thing that we're going to need to do is take off this air filter, get that out of the way. This is about the biggest pain when it comes to regular maintenance, is your air filter. But there it is. I'm going to set this down on our bolt bowl. Okay, so we're going to take out this air filter, and it's a big pain. And so now we're going to move on to the removal of the air box from the carburetor, which is going to require us to take off the pipe clamp, which I cannot seem to locate here. But first, because of stupid oil filter, I gotta wash my hands. Okay. So this is the only screwdriver that I could find in my toolbox at the moment. My other 2 just disappeared. I don't know what happened to them. But there's a little bolt right back here that's a hose clamp that clamps the air box onto the carburetor. And I think I can just get this to squeeze back there and grab this bolt, which it does appear to be turning. Which is a good sign. Okay, so that should be loose enough. If we don't knock over the bike, we should be able to pull this directly off of the carb. I believe that's what's going on. But you know, the air box is actually hitting right here. So we're gonna have to get the air box off of the top of the subframe, and that would be an 8mm head, that is. There appears to be a bit of a washer thing in there. Put that down into our bolt pan. Let's see if we can't get any further here. So there's these little flanges on the back here that are connected to the subframe also. Okay, now we can actually see what's going on here with the carb. And I think that we're gonna have to do this non-conventionally and take off the entirety of the subframe and then tackle the airbox afterwards, because it's pretty stuck onto the carburetor. After a brief session to find this, we found it. Anyway, let's take off this bolt here. It's the same on both sides, and that would be tightening. And I'm not getting enough leverage here. This bolt's gonna be a pain, huh? Oh yes, very much. Yeah, it's not wanting to go without a fight. Let's get a different wrench. So a couple of things. I got this, which has more leverage, and so we're gonna try that. If that doesn't work, we're gonna try using a little bit of this to add on to this. So, but first, I want to try this. Good heavens, that is something right there. Did it just... Ladies and gentlemen, it broke my ratchet. Okay, so one tool down and it's already gone. So we are going to try and use this wrench and this fork cap remover. So we are going to, let's see, go like this and pull it up, and there we go. At the sacrifice of the straightness of this, but we'll just put that back in the vise and straighten that sucker right back out. So this should be moving. Wasn't that a pain? I'm sure that we'll run into more of that on this bike. It's not the first time. The first time was actually with the damper bolt with the suspension. That was a big pain. We had to drill it out and everything. So let's just back these out and put them into the bolt pan. Magnetic bolt pan, mind you. Okay, so now we got to take off the subframe. ladies and gentlemen, there it is. And we'll check to see exactly how straight that is at a later date. But it looks to be relatively fine. So I think we're good to go with the subframe, but we'll check that out later. Okay, so now that we got the subframe off, we're back to the airbox dilemma. It should just be able to pop right out of here. And we're just going to take this breather hose off the airbox. And maybe try twisting it off the carb a little bit. On second thought, we might just not have that pipe clamp off enough. So we're going to try another shot at that. Okay, well there's definitely a lot of looseness right there. And it actually feels a lot better. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is your airbox. And I think we can just leave that hose clamp on there and everything will just be all peachy. So we'll just clean this out later, and this will be probably its own video, to be honest with you. Okay, so we're going to start draining all the fluids out of this engine. That way we can start tearing it down a little bit and not have to worry about it. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to drain all the coolant out. And in order to do that, there is this bolt right here. It is an 8mm, and that drains out all the coolant. But in order to drain the coolant, we need to take off the radiator cap, which is on the top of the radiator. So there's this thing, you need to take that off, otherwise it's not going to drain it all out. It'll create a negative pressure in the system and it won't allow it to drain. Okay, so I've got a 2-liter pop bottle that has been drained of all the pop, and it has coolant in there now. Now, keep in mind, make sure that you read your manual, your owner's manual, to make sure that you are disposing of this stuff properly. Okay, so we're going to loosen up this bolt. And here comes the mess. Let's get this out of here as fast as we can. Doing great. Guido, do you want to help? Or not? Okay. Yeah, he can be a lot of help sometimes. Yeah, we're going to need a lot of paper towels for this one. Good grief. Okay, so we got that embarrassment cleaned up and properly disposed of. Now we're just going to put it in this bolt here. Keep that from making any larger of a mess from just dripping around. And we're going to start taking the radiators off here. are so good to go.